Welcome to satsang. It's really beautiful to have you here. Let's remember what satsang is. Satsang is a gathering together to remember truth, to recognize the truth of our being, the self beyond the personal self, the wholeness of our being. That's what we get to do in satsang. Sat is truth, and song, as in sangha, is community, gathering together. So we come together to remember our togetherness, to remember our oneness, to remember the truth of our being. And largely why we might want to remember the truth of our being is because when we forget who we really are, when we forget the consciousness of our being, the soulful self, the oneness. When we forget that, the only self we've got is the ego self, is the self that has been constructed over time by the mind, the story of self, the opinions of self, the judgments of self, the beliefs about self, the stories of self. That's the only authority we have as to who we are and what's happening in the world. It's all our ego stories telling us about what's happening in the world because of its interpretation, based on its thoughts, its beliefs, its judgments, its programming, its conditioning. And we wonder why we often suffer as human beings. It's because we're listening to and we're being guided by a database of conditioning and programming, and we have forgotten our reality. If we ever knew it in the first place, if we ever even knew it in the first place. So satsang is the opportunity to remember our reality. And that's what it takes, is a constant remembering, a constant dialogue. So what I want to introduce this morning, or probably my morning here in Bali, is just a little bit of a dialogue around who we really are and who we're not, an inquiry, a remembering. And we'll drop into a bit of a meditation to get a direct experience of the true self. And then we'll talk and answer questions and explore deeper or more fully. So, a couple of statements that are part of this study, part of this dialogue, part of this exploration of the truth of our being. You are not who you think you are. The self we are thinking ourselves to be is thoughts. It's not who we really are. It is often called the dream state. It's a very active story of who we are, based on largely what we've learned, our programming, our conditioning, and we were programmed and conditioned by mom, dad, society, media, culture, religion, all manner of different stories, larger collective stories that contribute to us formulating a sense of self. It's not who we really are. It's not the essential nature of our being. It's not the consciousness and the soulful self. It is the personal self. The personal self is a construct. So you are not who you think you are. And yet most of us are identified as that construct simply because we haven't spent time as we will here in satsang and as we do in our meditations and studies in satsang. Most people have never inquired into the nature of their own reality. So you're not who you think you are. And this moment is not what you think it is. This moment is just this moment. And then we interpret the moment through our egoic construct. The ego story, the sense of self, the story of self takes in the moment, is present to the moment, and colors it with its interpretations. It's not reality, it's just its story. We'll play with that today. We'll look at how fascinating it is that we can change the story, and we realize nothing out there is actually changing in that moment that we change the story. The change is happening here. The change is happening in the story. So, satsang. An opportunity to remember, wake up to who we are. The essential stillness of being before the activity of mind colors the stillness of being, the stillness of consciousness, before we color that stillness with all of our stories, interpretations, judgments, opinions, beliefs. So this answers the question, why do we get so lost down the rabbit holes, right, of feelings and of storylines and of anxiety and depression, fear, doubt? Why do we get so lost in those? Typically because we are spending almost no time whatsoever in our lives inquiring into the nature of reality. We're not questioning those storylines. They appear, they percolate, they bubble up, and there they are, and then we struggle with them, or we resist them, or if they're good thoughts and good feelings and good beliefs, we try to hold on to them. Oh, please don't go away, please don't go away. And we're so in the story and working with the story and identified with the story that we don't remember the essential stillness and grace and love and peace of our being, of who we are. So that's why we get lost in the stories, because typically we don't have anything else. So the invitation is to start to train yourself to be in a fairly consistent state of inquiry. What's really happening? What's really happening? What is the source of these feelings? What is their substance? What is the nature of reality? What is the nature of my own being when I'm quiet enough not to be telling constant stories and narratives? It's like, what is the nature of the movie screen when we're not projecting a movie upon it? It's at peace. It's receptive. It's always in a state of allowing whatever movie plays upon it. We get so lost in the movie, we forget the beauty and the grace and the stillness and the vastness and the presence of simply being. And that's the peace that we're all looking for, is the peace of being. Not a peaceful state of mind, because that doesn't last, but the peace of being that witnesses the mind's activity. And so a question arises. Well, before I ask this question, let me reiterate. To be free, to wake up as who you really are, already are, always have been, always will be, the unwavering grace of being, to wake up to that is to be in a practice of inquiry. To be in a practice of inquiry consistently, or at least consistently is a good word. It's not constantly, because that's hard. But to consistently be asking, what's really happening? Who am I? What is the nature of my being? What are the components of this thing I call me? And we start to recognize the main me that we're identified with is activity of mind. That's not really me. It's like, wow, this thing I call me, we call it the ego. This thing I call me that I'm so identified with, what is that? And we look at it, we go, oh my God, it's a construct. I've been constructing this story of me based on, I was raised well, I was raised not well, I had difficulties, I made up stories about these things that happened and started to feel worthy, unworthy, lovable, not lovable. I have to be successful in order to be loved. I need to be validated and seen in order to feel like I have any worth or value. I mean, we've got all manner of constructs, all manner of ego stories. And ego isn't a thing. It's not a thing. There's no substance to it. It's activity of mind, literally. This thing we typically are identified with as self is activity of mind. And mostly we're spending our time trying to get that activity of mind to behave, to stabilize. But how's that going? It doesn't stabilize. I mean, after a while, when you're in the practice of knowing yourself truly, it will quiet down and it'll calm because it's not getting validated. That story isn't getting empowered because we're not getting hooked by it. So we're not in the story, and we're just witnessing the story and noticing it, and going, "Wow, there's my mind. Wow, check out my story today. Whoo, baby! Oh yeah, oh, there's my conditioning. There's my story. There's my programming. There's the old stuff, and there it is." But typically when that arises, we fight it, we battle it, we try to change it, we try to push it away, we try to get it to behave, and that empowers it. That just gives it more of a reality than it actually is. So we learn, oh, that's what's going on. But then it leaves a big question. Well, if that's not me, who am I? And that's why we have satsang and conscious conversations and engagements and studies, is to start to answer that question. It's a good inquiry. Who are you really? So let's play with a little meditation to know that self, just even briefly for a moment. Because that's what awakening is. It's little glimmers, it's awakening little glimmers of truth. And then the dominance of story comes in again and clouds the truth. And then we remember some truth and the dominance of story comes in and clouds the truth. And this happens. But we keep remembering who we really are. And that clouding gets thinner and thinner and thinner because we see it for what it is. It's not reality, it's just mind activity. And it starts to lose its power. So, it's a beautiful thing. It's really, I can tell you from my teachers and my own experience and those that I work with, those who are, in this conversation with me and I'm in the conversation with them. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing to be free of the habitual, programmed, conditioned self. And I started to say that it doesn't typically completely go away, but it gets very quiet and much weaker. It's the storylines, the programming, the conditioning, that false identity. It gets much weaker because we're not feeding it any longer. We're not engaging with it. We're watching it. We're giving it love. We're just giving it love. The truth of our being is love. So we meet our stories that will continue to arise. We just meet them with love. Not getting hooked by them, pulled by them, and struggling with them, but just loving them. Oh, there's my pain. Oh, yeah, there's that ego construct that is very powerful and that I'm learning to notice and recognize and love and be with. I don't need to fight it. It doesn't have any reality in the first place. So we don't hope to someday be free when the mind stops telling its stories. Here in this work, it's called the direct path. We go directly to the essence of our being and come to rest as that, so that when the conditioning and programming and stories and ego get very active, that can arise into the presence of love. Who am I really? Oh, I am the loving consciousness, the loving awareness, the stillness of being. I am the stillness in the background of all experience. I am the stillness in the background of all mind activity. I am that which is aware of all of it and am unchanged by any of it. So let's do a little meditation here. I invite you just to sit quietly for a moment. And we'll start with the eyes closed, but then we're going to open our eyes in just a little bit in this meditation. But for now, you can close your eyes. And bring your awareness to your breath. Bring your awareness to the activity of breathing. Simply notice the movement of air in and out of your body. And the breath, there's nothing magic in the breath. All we are doing is we are intentionally pointing our mind away from its own thoughts and into the activity of breathing. It's just distracting the mind and intentionally pointing it somewhere other than its thoughts. So simply be aware of the presence of your own breath. Notice the pace of your breath. Notice the depth of your breath. Notice any thoughts that are trying to get your attention and distracting you from the breath. Notice them and then simply point your awareness back to the breath. Notice the mind activity and then notice the breath. And be more interested in the stillness of your own being that is breathing. Notice if the mind is struggling, panicking. Notice if your mind is uncomfortable. If it wants to keep talking, that's okay. It's okay. It'll do that sometimes. Simply notice it. And then bring your awareness back to the breath and notice with some curiosity and some love and some compassion. Wow, check out my mind. Wow, look how uncomfortable it is with stillness. It's fascinating. And then notice how we can get hooked by the thoughts. And then next thing you know, we're off in a story, off in a thought pattern. And that's okay. As soon as you notice that, stop and bring your awareness back to your breath, the physical sensation of breathing. And then I invite you to bring your awareness to the muscles in your face, around your eyes, perhaps, and let the muscles in your eyes and your jaw, let those muscles relax. Bring your awareness to your shoulders and let your shoulders relax. Bring your awareness to your arms. Let them relax. Bring your awareness to your legs. See if there's any tension being held there and let them relax. And simply notice the experience of pointing your awareness anywhere other than the habitual narrative of mind. In this case, the body, the breath. You're pointing awareness to the body and breath. And notice that as soon as we point our awareness away from the thoughts, we start to feel more peace. And you may find it fascinating and very informative that the only thing that distracts you from your essential peace of being is your own mind. And that may bring up the question, well, what else is there other than my own mind coloring the moment with its thoughts and opinions and beliefs and stories? That's what I've always done. It's what I've been doing almost every moment of my waking life. Never really done anything different. Who would I be without that? What would reality be without me narrating it? Well, let's check that out. I invite you to open your eyes and look at the world around you. Just notice that there is a world of form. And notice that typically we have a narrative around the world of form, even if it's as simple as naming things. Oh, that is a lamp. That is a couch. That is a desk. That is a tree. That is the color green. That is the color blue. That is the color red. Just notice very gently. And play with the fact that you can tell a story about any of it. It's an ugly lamp. It's a beautiful lamp. You may look at a house plant and say, "Oh, that's growing so beautifully, and why is that, and what goes into that?" And we're narrating life on a fairly regular basis. Just notice that. And now, see what happens when you inquire, when you play with, when you imagine, what if you weren't telling a story about any of it? What happens when you just witness without narration, without naming everything? Noticing the activity of mind comes and goes. It gets more active, it starts naming things and telling stories, and then you ask it not to, and it quiets down. And then it may perk up again and then quiets down. And notice that any change typically isn't happening out there. If you're looking at a static environment, any change isn't happening out there. It's happening in your mind. Stories about things, feelings about things, narratives. Just notice that. And if you were to completely strip out all narrative, what is one thing that you can't get rid of? You can get rid of the story, you can change the stories, you can change the beliefs, you can quiet the beliefs. That keeps changing, fluctuating. What doesn't fluctuate? Behind the objects, behind the stories, behind all of that, what is present to the stories? What is present to the objects? What is present to the narratives that are changing and fluctuating and quieting and getting noisy again? All of that shifting and movement and activity of mind and thoughts. That's all changing. What is not changing? Consciousness, awareness, the awareness of that which is changing. Often we call it the witness. A stillness of being. Beyond the ego identity, beyond the narratives, beyond the conditioning, beyond the programming. There is an awareness that you can't get rid of it. It's always present. In the background of all narrative, in the background of all thought, there is a presence of peaceful awareness. What if you came to recognize that that is who you actually are? You're not your stories. You're not your narratives. You're not your egoic construct. That's all changing, shifting, coming, going, appearing, disappearing. What doesn't change? A peaceful, rested presence of awareness. You are not that which changes. You're just not. You are the boundless, unwavering, timeless consciousness of being, the oneness. That is often veiled by the stories, the mind's narratives, the mind's projections. Notice that stillness. Notice its essence. This is you. This is what we all actually are. The essential nature of being. And it's always there. This is the key. It is always there. It can't not be. It's what you are. It's like the movie screen and the movie. The movie is the mind's narratives, the mind's perspectives, the mind's storytelling. That's the movie, the mind's storytelling. It takes in a moment and it runs it through its database of what it's learned and how, and the story of self and the sense of identity and the personal egoic sense of self. It runs everything through that egoic perspective. And the ego says, oh, this is what I think. This is what I feel. This is what I believe. None of it's true. It's just its projected story. And that's all being projected upon the unwavering presence of awareness. Awareness is just like the screen. It never changes. You could play a movie of a forest fire and the screen will not burn. And why is it valuable to know this? Well, because it's the real you. It's who you actually are. And to know that allows us then to live in this world of form and to play with story and narrative and not get so lost in all of it. The opportunity here is to awaken as who you always are, the truth of your being, and awakened as that stillness of being. Life then can occur without being so scary or threatening or disturbing. Because it's typically scary and threatening and disturbing to our storyline of self. So your ego is telling a story about what it thinks about each moment relative to itself. The ego is telling a story about each and every moment relative to its own construct. So it's really important to know that that's happening. So we can intentionally be aware of that and go, oh my God, why would I want to keep going down those rabbit holes? And if we don't know the essential nature of our being, we go down those rabbit holes because it's our only sense of reality. It's our only sense of what's happening is the stories. And if that's all we are identified with, then we're going to constantly be trying to get those stories to behave so that we feel better. And that's suffering. So again, look around the world, look around your life, and notice that thoughts can change, ideas can change, stories can change, the situation can change. But the awareness doesn't. It doesn't change. It's the only thing that's actually stable. If you're looking for stability, if you're looking for peace, that's it, is to know the truth of your own being, of your own consciousness, of the consciousness that you are. Try this. Look out at the world again, and it's just a scene, right? And imagine there's three layers of perception. There's the form, there's the thinking mind, thinking about the form. And behind that, there's the awareness of the thinking mind about the form. The form, the activity of mind around what it thinks about the form, and the awareness of the thinking mind and all of its projections and ideas and thoughts and beliefs. And imagine now, imagine taking your hands and swiping and changing the whole scene. Completely different. Just imagine swiping and you just change the scene. And then your thoughts about, oh, it's a new scene. What do I think about this new scene? That changes, the thoughts change, the scene changes. What doesn't change? That's called an inquiry. Inquire, what doesn't change? Wow. There's a me beyond the form, beyond the thoughts about the form, there's an awareness. We typically suffer our thoughts and suffer our beliefs and suffer our stories, trying to get them to behave, trying to get them to stop, to be better. But behind all of that, there is the stillness of our being that we typically forget. So, this is why the invitation is to stay in these studies, stay in these conversations, so that we can consistently inquire what's really happening. Who am I really? So I'm going to open it up here for a couple of questions, if you'd like. You can chime in if you're on the Chrome browser with those links that I provided. You're able to, there's a button there that says join in the conversation, and I can bring you on to have a little dialogue. You can also chat a question here. And I need to beg your indulgence and give me one moment. I need to step away for just a moment and I'll be right back. So just kind of be with what question arises as we're talking about a reality that most human beings are not exploring. What arises around how do we navigate this? Because the mind will, the ego mind will protest. It'll say, yeah, but what about my reality? What about my thoughts? What about my sense of self? So play with that for a second. I'll be right back. Thank you. So I'm reminded of a beautiful remembrance, beautiful teaching that says we do not fear with the heart. We fear with the mind. And we do not love with the mind. We love with the heart. And the invitation here is to recognize that the heart is not where love lives. Love is what we are. It's simply bringing awareness out of the mind into the heart, gives us access to the love that we are. Because remember, the mind is always veiling that, not always, but typically. The mind's stories, projections, thoughts, beliefs, what it is calling reality on a regular basis, is veiling the essence of being, the truth of who we are, and that is love. So it's quite fascinating when we drop the awareness out of the story, we recognize there's a love there. Oh, and it's always there. It's a question here. Hey, Dan. What is a simple practice for returning back to conscious awareness when the mind chatter seems overwhelming during moments of great challenge? That's such a good question. Yep, that's it, right? That's the question. Okay. Okay, I'm going to start broad and then come and answer your question more directly. But broadly, we need to stay in these conscious conversations. We need to keep asking what's really happening, what's going on. And we can't answer that question if we haven't studied, right? Before you have any sense of what is an ego, what is consciousness, what is soul, what is love, what is programming, conditioning, trauma, what are the mechanisms of our sense of reality? What does it mean to get lost in the story? If we're not studied in that, if we're not bringing our awareness to those concepts, those ideas, those perceptions, then going through life and saying what's really happening right now would have no value, because you wouldn't have any guidance. You wouldn't have any guidance. You wouldn't have any teaching. So the first part of the question is, how do we come back into the truth of our being when the mind is so overwhelming? We need to be able to name what's happening. Oh, there's my mind activity. Fascinating. Oh, and I've learned, in these studies, I've learned mind activity is veiling truth. My mind activity that I'm so caught up in is veiling truth. Okay, that's good to know. So right there, you start to weaken the power of the mind because you're already seeing it for what it is. It has no substance. So broad answer is we need to be studied. Become a student of your wholeness of being. Know thyself. That's it. Know thyself, the truth of you. And know the illusion of you. So that when the illusion is veiling the truth of you, you know both. So then the critical question is, in a moment of I can't get out of it, my mind's overpowering, I'm feeling it so deeply, how do I get out of this? How do I get out of this? How do I get out of this? If you've been studying it all, you know that there's if you ask the question, so I'll give you a couple of answers. One is to ask a question, who is the I that is struggling? And the second part of that question is, and what is aware of the I that is struggling? Who is the I that is feeling so challenged, so lost, so confused, so scared, so tight, so small, so anxious, so stressed? Who is that? Oh my God. That's all mind activity. That's all ego construct. Okay, that's one thing. But then the real question is, and what is aware of that? Is this feeling that I'm experiencing that I can't quite get away from, was it always present? No, it arose. Something happened in life and it triggered this conditioned response, this mind activity. And that mind activity got very strong, and the emotional activity attached with it. It all got very, very strong. It comes and goes. This thing that I'm struggling with comes and goes within What? Awareness. Does the awareness come and go? And right there, you're starting to get a little separation. You're starting to get a little distance and going, oh, there's two things happening. There's the awareness of the activity of mind. There are two things that are happening. They're actually kind of not, but that's a deeper, different conversation. But for this practice. Now, that often can be very difficult and confusing. So we start to use analogies. We start to bring form, pictures, concepts that are helpful. Because sometimes when we're really in it, just saying, wait, who am I really? Wait, this is activity of mind. It's just, we're swimming in it. We're in it. We're not deep enough in our studies or further along enough in our studies to be able to, and in our direct experience in our meditations, to be able to rapidly go, oh, wait, oh, there I am. Oh, there's the truth of being. Okay, I'm okay. We're not there yet. So analogies are helpful. And one of the analogies is the sky and the weather. If the weather, if you're looking up and all you see is cloudy skies and you can't see the sky, all you see is the clouds, but you know that there's a sky on the other side of the clouds. And when the weather clears, the sky is present. And when the weather comes back, the sky is still present. You just can't see it. So you get so lost in the idea of clouds because it's all you can see. You forget, oh, wait, beyond the clouds, there's a peaceful sky. Oh, beyond my thoughts, there is a peaceful awareness. Okay, this is helpful. All right, beyond my agitation and my story and my conditioning and my habits, beyond all of this, there is the sky of awareness. There's a peaceful awareness of my suffering, of the suffering that is occurring within my mind and body. So analogies are very helpful. An analogy that I worked with for a while that was helpful was the ocean and the waves. And recognizing that many times I would be in the tumult of the waves and the crashing of the waves, whitecaps. And I'm in a little boat and I'm just trying desperately to stay afloat and being battered by the storm of my own mind. And if I dropped below the waves, feeling-wise, feeling out of the battle, if I just dropped below the battle and the storm and the chaos of the waves, what did I find? Every time, the peaceful presence, the depth of the ocean, the depth of peace, the depth of stillness. And then I go, wow, look at that. That chaos is this very thin layer. And it's changing. Today it's 30-foot waves and storm. Another day it's placid. But that keeps changing, but the ocean doesn't change. Oh, who am I really? I am not my mind that is often in chaos. I am the stillness of awareness beyond the mind. That's who I really am. And how do I know that? Because when I practice my inquiries and in my meditations and in these conversations, it is revealed again and again and again and again, the truth of being beyond the activity of mind. It's always there. Always. So going to the breath, Dan, that's the easiest place to start. Distract the mind from its own chaos and direct yourself to the physical sensation of breathing. It may take a little bit and you'll bounce back and forth, but you just keep, nope, I'm going to be with the breath, be with the breath, go to the heart. You can take it a little bit further. You can even imagine in that moment, imagine if every cell of my body, every pore on my skin was inhaling. Try that right now. Imagine your entire body is breathing. The air isn't just coming in through the nose or the mouth. Imagine the air is coming in through every pore of your skin. All the surface of your skin is breathing. Inhale, exhale, especially on the inhale. And if you start to feel any glimmer of peace, any glimmer of presence, the next step is to name it. Oh, that's reality. When my mind isn't clouding the reality of peace with its stories, what is there? Peace. And it doesn't come and go. It's always there. Just waiting for me to intentionally point my awareness beyond the chaos of mind. So I hope that helps, Dan. It's a practice. It's a practice of remembering truth, inquiring into the nature of reality again and again and again and again and again and again, and not just in our meditations, but as we're walking through our day. You could be at the grocery store and literally just take a moment to be conscious and inquire, wow, what's really happening here? There's the store, there's all my thoughts about the store, and there's that shopper over there who's walking too slowly or whatever, or there's that person over there who's incredibly attractive, or that person over there who I think is too overweight, or that person over there and you just notice all your narrative. Just notice it. And you go, wow, what's aware of all of this? This is all happening within what? There's an awareness of everything that's changing. There's an awareness of it. Oh, I'm always lost in the ever-changing thoughts and stories and narratives, and I've forgotten to pull back and go, wow, that's all the movie of my mind playing upon the screen of consciousness. And the screen of consciousness is at peace, unbothered. And that's who I really am. So we just stay in that kind of dialogue for years and years. And then the truth of our being is known again and again and again and again and again. And it's like a spark. You got to keep breathing on the spark for it to turn into an ember. And you got to keep fanning that ember for it to turn into a flame. And you got to keep feeding that flame for it to turn into a fire. And after a while, you're truly living as peaceful awareness. Noticing the arising and passing of emotions and thoughts and beliefs. Feeling them briefly and not being identified as them. You are identified as who you really are. That's to live in an awakened state. And enlightenment is not an extraordinary thing. Because if you think about it, what we're saying is enlightenment is simply living as who you already are. You know what's an extraordinary thing? Forgetting our truth, living in the dream, living in the mind's thoughts, beliefs, stories, narratives, projections, and actually thinking that's reality. That's extraordinary. That is extraordinary. Patience is key. So if you haven't, I recommend downloading my ebook. It's a free ebook, The 10 Essential Foundations for Full Potential Living. And that is to look at what are some things, some foundations that we are not attending to that need to be attended to. And the first one is patience. And I think the second one is study. And the next one is practice. And the next one is devotion. We have to be intentional about this journey of awakening. Thank you, Dan. Yeah, this is what we do. We ask questions. We engage in the conversations. We wake up continually. Now, I've been in this for a while. Pretty much I live now with an equanimity of peace. The personal self still feels what it feels, and thinks what it thinks, but with less authority, less ferocity, less duration. And I don't imagine it's ever going to end, that there's a consistent new realization of being. Because what we're talking about is to know self as the one, to know self as the one consciousness. Plane after plane of consciousness will keep peeling back and peeling back and peeling back. The revelation of the oneness that you are, I mean, that's forever. Peeling back illusion after illusion, opening into and knowing the essence of the oneness of our being. It keeps showing up with more clarity, with more clarity. And then we can notice the peace and the anxiety. And then we know the peace is the essential nature of my being. That's true. The anxiety is activity of mind, habit, conditioning, storytelling. On whose behalf is this anxiousness arising? And who is aware of it? And what is aware of it? On whose behalf is this feeling, this struggle arising? And what is aware of it? On what behalf is this struggle arising? Why is it there? What's its makeup? What's its source? What are its components? And what is aware of that? It's one of the most powerful questions you can ask. No matter what moment you're feeling, and what is aware of that? And what is aware of this? And what is aware of this? And the answer is always the same. I am. The singular I, the one I that we all share. Because if we were to ask anything to speak about itself, the first two words it would use is I am. And then it would differentiate. I am a flower. I am a dog. I am a man. I am a woman. I am this, I am that. The this and the that is a modulation of the I am. So when you ask the question, what is aware of everything that is occurring within me, around me, storytelling, narrative, feelings, what is aware of this? I am. What does that mean? I am. What does that mean? Well, explore it. Sit quietly and explore. If I is not changing, what is its nature? The I that changes is not the true you. The I am that is shared by everything. The I am out of which everything is expressed. That I am is pure love, pure peace. And I am that. That's freedom. To know that is freedom. I want to read a little something. I saw this yesterday and I love this. I was not expecting the final line of this. If you can sit quietly after difficult news, if in financial downturns you remain perfectly calm, if you can see your neighbors travel to fantastic places without a twinge of jealousy, if you can happily eat whatever is put on your plate and fall asleep after a day of running around without a drink or a pill, if you can always feel contentment just where you are probably a dog. I was reading that yesterday. That was from Jack Cornfield. I was reading that yesterday. I'm like, oh, this person's talking about enlightenment. They're talking about what I now know and what my teachers and those who are in this study come to know deeper and deeper. That's the life experience. That description is the life experience. To be able to meet all of life with the rested stillness of being, not lost in your own construct and narrative. And I'm like, wow, they're talking about enlightenment. They're talking about awakening. They're talking about, but somebody who's really in their studies. No, you're probably just a dog. But that's what happens. That's the freedom. To be able to meet every moment of life as who you really are. Gary, or a cat. Yeah, or a cat. Or as who you are. As the reality of your being. As an awakened consciousness. I mean, that would be the last line. If you can always find contentment just where you are probably awakened as who you are. You're probably living as your true essential nature of being, your wholeness of being. The fun thing is, so a dog can do that because they don't have an egoic construct like we do. The freedom, the amazing thing, see, we get the best of both worlds. We get to, through this practice, we get to have an entire human experience with our ability to make things up and create and play and build and do all the things a dog can't do. We get to be very active with consciousness, but then not to get so lost in it that we forget our grace. This is the freedom. This is the opportunity to be completely immersed in the world of a human life, to have all the experiences and not get lost in them to the point that we forget our divinity of being. This is true freedom. To be awakened as love in this fascinating, beautiful miracle of life. And you look around, it is great. Dan's given a thumbs up going, that's great. It is. And most people are lost chasing the experience of happiness and chasing the experience of peace through navigating and managing the external world and trying to navigate and manage their own internal habitual conditioning and programming. That it doesn't work. It's a fool's errand. If I could just get the world to behave and just get my mind and emotions to completely behave all the time, I'd be good. And we come to this journey, we come to this study at some point because we finally get it. It doesn't work. Because even if we get the world to behave and get that relationship to behave and get the right job and get everything stable, now we're in the experience of clinging, holding on. Oh, I've got it. I got it. It's all working. Oh, please don't change. Please don't change. Oh, wait. And then we're back in struggle and suffering again because that person starts to misbehave and that situation starts to fall apart. That you cannot be free when the identity of your own, when the source of your sense of happiness and peace and love is dependent on a world that will not behave. Or if it's dependent on a mind set, a strong mind with good affirmations and good beliefs and good thoughts all the time. And as long as I keep that going, then I'm good. But oh God, now my mind, why is my mind doing this again? Oh no, stop it. Oh God, my mind's starting to have these old conditioned, triggered, programmed thoughts again. Ah, damn it. Oh, I was so close to being free. And there goes my mind again. That's suffering. The direct path says, go to your freedom. Know that you are already free. You are the ocean underneath the waves. You are the sky beyond the weather. You are the movie screen upon which the movie plays. You are pure consciousness. You are love. You are the oneness of love within which the mind gets active. It's not, the mind's active again, I'm screwed. It's the mind's active again. Wow, check that out. Wow, what's really happening? Wow, look at my mind. Curiosity and playfulness is really important. Check out my mind. Wow. Oof, check out my pain. Check out my, Oh, God. Whew, there it is. There's my pain. I'm not that. It's there. It needs to be loved. It needs to be healed. It needs to be attended to, but not by making it go away or even curing it, but by remembering the light of being, the light of love, the essential boundless grace of love that we are, so that we can know that grace and rest as that grace and hold space and love our pain as it arises. Everything arises so that it may pass. Everything that arises so that it may pass. So we learn to be the wholeness of being, the grace of being into which all of these human experiences arise. Take a moment. Take a moment to be still. Bring your awareness to your breath. Notice the ease and grace of your own breath. Notice the presence of your own heart. Notice that there is a peace, which we call an inner peace. The truth of you when it's not veiled by or clouded by the activity of mind. Notice there is a grace of being. And then there's a little meditative tool, which is to inquire in this moment. Imagine in this moment, sitting here, what if there was no storytelling about you, about life's conditions? Imagine, just for this moment, we're not saying imagine living like this. We're just saying in this moment, in this meditative moment, what if there was no story of you being played in the mind? Would you disappear? If you weren't telling a story about yourself, would you disappear? And what's fascinating is we start to recognize, oh my God, I wouldn't disappear. Something would still exist. So not only would I not disappear, I'd actually start to appear. The essential nature of my being, the truth of my being, the unwavering grace of being would be known, would be revealed. Simply because I inquired with imagination. What if I didn't have a story? Is there a me without my story of me? What makes up my story of me? How identified am I with that? Probably almost 100%. And why is that? Simple. Because I don't know who I really am, and I need an identity. And if I am not practiced in coming to remember and recognize the essential truth of my being, then the only sense of self I've got is the egoic story, the egoic storytelling concept, construct. Who am I really? So, this is why we engage in satsang, why we engage in our studies. And I want to invite anybody who is not yet a part of the Oasis membership to join. Because this is where we have these conscious conversations. This is where we consistently remember truth, consistently remember truth, consistently remember truth. This is where this satsang, a recording of this satsang, will live. There's a whole library of lessons and inspirations that if you went once a day, even once a week, to the Oasis to immerse yourself in remembering truth, that's part of your studies. That's part of your growth. So if you're not already a part of the Oasis, currently it's open. I close it down I leave it open for enrollment for about a week, and that's happening right now. And then it closes down for about 4 months before I open it up again for another week. And that opening is open right now. You just go to chessedwards.com and you'll see the links to join the Oasis. And it's there so that we as a collective can awaken and know peace and can know true freedom, true peace, true grace, true love. All right, my friends, so good to be here with you. Thank you for following your heart, listening to your own soul. It's not an easy journey, but it's very simple. You are not who you think you are. Life is not what you think it is. Those are just thoughts coloring the consciousness, the awareness with perception. And we start to become very aware. How am I coloring this consciousness, this piece of being, this grace of being? How is my mind, my conditioning, my programming, my ego coloring everything and telling a story about this is good and that is bad and that is threatening and this is nice and I am unloved and now I'm loved and now I'm safe and now I'm not? Who's telling all those stories? All right. Beautiful. Blessings. Much love. Satsang is now going to start to occur on Sundays and Wednesdays. So keep an eye out for those announcements. But if you're a part of the Oasis, you're going to see that you've got a schedule there in the Oasis for joining us in satsang basically every 2 weeks. All right. Much love, my friends. Thank you, Gary. It's good to see you here. Dan, thank you for your contributions and your questions and your inquiries. And I hope this was helpful for you today. And for those who are just being and listening and present, thank you. Because we all are the same consciousness. And as the individuals wake up to their oneness, that is what unifies. That is what helps us all remember. There is no other. This is the problems in the world right now are because we believe in other. The cause of all suffering is the illusion of separation. We are not separate. We all share the same I am. Pure love. And we'll all know that. That's happening. That collective consciousness is burgeoning, is awakening to itself. And we each play our little part. Of waking up from the illusion of separation and knowing our oneness. All right, blessings, my friends. We'll see you in a few weeks. Be well.